This is Envision Self-Healing Podcast, episode number 40. Hi, I'm Will Fuller.
And I'm Richard Miller.
And we are the co-creators of EnvisionSelfHealing.com and are dedicated in helping you improve your eyesight and quality of life
by taking healing into your own hands. The topic of the week this week is Overcoming Barriers to Natural Vision Improvement, Part 1. And in the question of the week, we have a question on Facebook where someone has been experiencing a variation in their vision from 2020 to 2070. And they're wondering how to actually test their vision improvement.
So, Richard, how's the world of self-healing been treating you this week?
Well, I went to my ophthalmologist for the first time. Well, to a new ophthalmologist, actually, for the first time in maybe 6 years. I'm not sure.
Nice.
I wanted to have a doctor at my to be able to look at my eyes and be sure nothing is changing, that hopefully things will be going in a positive direction, just to have a baseline. And I hadn't seen this doctor in maybe 15 years.
Okay.
So, all my records, of course, were gone from then. And then I had a doctor in Seattle for a while that I saw, and of course, I would have to come up with those records. This is all the complexities of actually doing all of this.
Yeah.
And and he was a very progressive, this particular doctor is very progressive in ophthalmology, which is kind of an oxymoron a little bit. In our world, anyway. Yeah. That's our bias, anyway. That he believes in nutrition, he believes in eye exercises to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. So, but it was an interesting experience because here was probably one of the most progressive ophthalmologists in the country, is my guess.
Yeah.
And yet I hit all of these barriers with him. I hit what I'm now calling sort of intellectual glass ceilings. The way women talk about, having a glass ceiling that they can't be promoted above. Mm-hmm. I was discovering all of these barriers to my improvement, essentially, that he kept coming up with. For instance, one of the reasons I went there was to discuss stem cell treatments that are now becoming in the news for my condition and other conditions. He was good at that, and we discussed China, and I guess now the Chinese government has actually stepped in and tried to control, because they're like, these stem cell clinics are popping up all over China, and the government finally got concerned that they're sort of like back in garage level stem cell treatments. I'm not sure. So anyway, we discussed that, and I guess they're doing them in Germany now, he said. Okay. Things like that. So that was useful, and we had a good discussion. But then we hit this point where he said, well, your condition is hereditary. Ergo, they will do nothing for you.
Wow.
And it was just like he just sort of like made this proclamation.
Yeah.
And, for a second, I almost accepted it. And then I realized this is an experimental treatment that really we don't know much about.
Yeah.
And for him to say, I know you do not, it will not work for you, seemed a stretch to me, a real leap, and kind of creating this. And I could see how the average person going in there would go, oh, doctor says it will not, it won't work for me.
So it doesn't work.
So it doesn't work. And you could almost take that argument then go, well, eye exercises, you could make the same kind of argument. Eye exercises will not work on genetic conditions. Mm-hmm. You just make a proclamation like that.
Yeah.
And you can see, I was sort of seeing the process of how we limit the possibilities that we all have.
Depending on what somebody else says, and also on our own belief system, I guess.
Yeah.
What we knew from the past.
Yeah. And he was making statements about stem cell treatments that I could tell he really didn't know, but he was sort of like, in his position, he's expected to provide definitive answers.
Yeah.
And that's what he was doing, even when I felt like I probably knew more than he did on some of these more experimental things. So.
Yeah, and I've certainly never heard one of them say, well, I don't know.
Exactly, they don't say that.
Or, well, why don't you go and research, or give me a ring in a couple of months' time and I'll do some research on it. Or
Right.
It's very, like you say, very definitive.
Yes.
I had the same when I had the macular edema in the back of my eye, and then I got a macular pucker, a macular hole in the back there. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, is there anything that could be done? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, we can operate, but there's a 60% chance you'll go blind. Mm-hmm. or nothing.
Or nothing.
That was it. That was the only two options. Either operate and there's a good chance I go blind, or just do nothing. They were the only two cards on the table.
Right.
So that was for me when that glass ceiling sort of broke, when I realized, I just thought, this can't be.
Yeah.
This can't be it.
Yeah.
You know, in the whole world, out of everything that's going on, that this is the only thing. And that was when I started researching natural vision improvement myself. Mm-hmm. But it's amazing that, I mean, of course you believe everything that's, and which is why we say it's very important that you go see an ophthalmologist, but
take everything they say with a bit of grain of salt and do your own research.
Yeah.
And, and the other thing I was researching was my genetics in terms of, I want to know whether I have the dominant form or the recessive form. And again, we went through, and this is my problem, is my family tree history appears to the layman to be the dominant form, because 3 out of 4 of my siblings got the condition. 1 out of 7 in my father's generation got it, and 2 out of 4 in my grandfather's generation got it. So that appears dominant. And I presented this to him, and yet the symptoms I have are like the recessive form.
Okay.
And I presented this, okay, you're the doctor, figure this out for me. And he immediately, again, went very definitively, you have the dominant form, no question. And he didn't address any of the problems with my symptoms not actually matching. And again, I felt like, well, okay, he's right. But then I'm like, well, he's not a geneticist. Maybe I should question what he's saying here. It was just a lot of those kind of experiences.
Yeah.
And he did the same thing with nutrition a little bit too. Like, because I have hereditary condition, nutrition will not work. Things like, definitive statements like that.
And are you getting a definitive test done to see whether it is dominant or recessive?
Right. I did finally. I mean, he made such a statement of, you definitely have the dominant. He was ready to walk away from that question. And it took everything I could to say, there is a test out there, which there is now. I want to have that test. And so I think because he was progressive, he was willing to go there. I think that's where he is progressive. He's actually willing to listen to his. So
let's hope that it does come out recessive, because then because then what you
we could prove him wrong anyway.
Because otherwise everything we've just said isn't right.
Exactly.
Oh well, that's interesting. We'll have to see how that goes.
So it was not a wholly positive experience, but and I did get a scan of my optic nerve that will be a good baseline to look at. So, and
definitely it's always good to check up with your eyes, and you know that the retina is still healthy, and
exactly. And I don't have cataracts, I don't have macular degeneration, I don't have anything extra going on, so that's all good.
Good.
Yeah. And how about you?
Yeah, I had a good week. I think obviously been real busy in front of the computer and finishing off the new Eye Exercise Express that we're going to talk a little bit about later on. But I think one thing that I noticed was towards the end of last week, remember me saying that even after a full day of computer use and doing a lot of recording and all the rest of it, that I had no eye strain that evening. And it's sort of starting to dawn on me the more I move away from eye strain and just fatigue, because of what the visual fatigue does to me. It makes me tired a lot of the time. Is that it's starting to make me realize what it's like to not be tired and not have that visual fatigue all the time. And it's a really nice feeling.
Yeah.
Because it really is such a mental strain. Like when you have that visual fatigue and your eyes are sort of achy and somebody's maybe talking to you and you're trying to concentrate, but you've just got this dull ache in your head, and it's like, I really want to listen, but I just want to lie down. I just want to close my eyes, and it's really difficult to try and maintain focus when you have that.
Yeah.
And then of course when you go and you want to watch TV or you want to then work, it's just the strain is just so much. And I guess in particular I'm used to feeling it in the evenings, and especially as I'm getting up at 5:30 now. I know it's not a sleep issue. It's not that I'm more rested because I'm getting up earlier than I used to get.
Right. True.
It really shows me that it's a visual fatigue issue.
Yeah.
And it explains what, sometimes I just just feel short answered, in the evenings. And someone say, well, what about? And I'm like, you know what? I don't really care. That's what I'm saying in my head.
Yeah.
Because my eyeballs are going to pop out of my head, and I really want to just go sleep or palm or go do a peripheral vision exercise or something. So it's really exciting, because I mentioned, I think maybe last week or the week before, again, that I noticed after a full day of work that I didn't have that strain. So it's kind of a novelty. It's still a novelty for me, for my eyes to feel that rested. So, which is nice that I'm getting it, but it just goes to show how much strain my eyes are under all the time. And I certainly contribute that to the lack of periphery, and I'm really overworking my central vision, which is what a lot of people without RP are doing voluntarily when they sit and stare at a computer screen for 12 hours, or they have to focus on one spot and switch off the world around them. They're doing the same thing, but I've sort of got it on a constant level.
Right.
So that was a really nice observation. I'm looking forward to see the direction that goes in. Also, this week I went and did a bit more golfing.
Right.
I talked about one of my bucket lists.
Yeah. Golf bucket list.
Bucket list. Excuse the pun. That I'm working on, and it was really good. What we did this time is, remember before I talked about how I went golfing. It was a little bit difficult because every time I hit the ball, I didn't know where it went.
Right.
Because with the lack of rod cells, it's difficult to pick up motion.
Right.
So I couldn't necessarily see where it went. And it was a very bright day, and it was in a clear sky, and a white ball in a clear sky, can be difficult. So but this time, so we took that on board. I knew it was difficult to get the feedback, so I wasn't quite sure where the ball was going. This time we went to an indoor driving range. So, but what it was the back of a golfing store, and they just had a big net up. And then what you do is you hit the ball, but there's a laser that picks up everything, and when you hit that ball, and it displays it on a screen.
Wow, that's
where
great.
the ball would go if you had hit it.
Oh, that's great.
So obviously it's not like the real thing, and I'm not encouraging people just to to not go outdoors. But the thing here is that acknowledging your challenges, acknowledging your barriers, which is what we're going to talk about in a little bit. And then instead of being, oh, I can't see the ball when I hit it, I'm never going to play golf. It's how can I adapt to this situation? Other than the exercises, what can I do that makes this possible? And of course, indoor golfing, I can practice as many times as I want, keep hitting the ball. Other than a couple of people that I nearly killed with the golf ball flying off at different angles. Luckily, there were some wooden barriers in between us at one point. Got a little bit hairy there.
Really?
And other than also, it was actually a golfing store, and the idea is that you use these things to practice with a golf club before you buy it.
Right.
And I was using it just to train with. So the only other thing is people walking by, watching you, and of course, I was just awful.
Yeah.
So,
I don't want to buy those golf gloves.
Yeah, look at that guy. But I was really pleased because it was interesting. The first half an hour I was doing pretty well. The nerves weren't there like before because it was the second time I was doing it. I'd had time to, practice in my head, so to speak. When you do an activity and then you leave it for a while, you carry on doing it even though you've left it. And there wasn't the pressure of other people by the side of me or, anything. It was just me, the ball, and a net. So it was not a net as in the woman a net, but a net in front of me.
Yeah.
And so it was really good. And then the fact that I had the screen to tell me what direction. So what it meant is that I could really get my technique down. So the first half hour was good. And then for about an hour, I was just awful. Like, I don't know.
Oh, you were experimenting maybe or
exactly,
something. Yeah.
And also, apparently this is also the game of golf.
Yeah.
Somebody once said to me, I said, I've just started golf. And because he has played a lot of golf. And he said, are you at the point where you're still enjoying it, or is it annoying yet? I thought, And I understand what he's saying now, because it just takes the smallest thing to put you off the game.
Yeah.
And it was because I was trying to get this technique. And then at the very end, just when I'd sort of given up, I started to feel the rhythm in it, and I started hitting it straight. And, the pressure was off. Some people had left, I was allowed to just focus on it. And
you weren't overthinking it anymore.
Exactly.
At that point. Yeah.
and was just hitting the ball pretty well, and I started feeling good. So I came away, even though it's my only second time golfing, feeling positive about it, and even though it was difficult the first time with seeing the ball, I really feel like I've met my challenge there, and I'm looking forward to just practicing, getting the skill down, and then hitting the golf course at some time. But just accepting that I might have these limitations. I just have to take it a little bit slower than other people might, but in the end I still get to enjoy a good game of golf. And I did I've got if you check out Facebook now, you'll see a picture of what I'm talking about, of the computer screen and the laser machine and the net and everything. There's a picture there of my golfing coach hitting the ball off into the distance.
Well, you have a good coach. You've lucked out, really.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And he didn't pre-plan us going to this laser machine at all. It just worked out that where we were was in the area. So
great.
So I was really, really pleased about that. Certainly some lessons to be learned.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, it's a good time to move on to topic of the week.
And the topic of the week this week is Overcoming Barriers to Natural Vision Improvement, Part 1.
So the reason why we wanted to bring this up really is a lot of what we've been focusing on these last few weeks is how can you really get going with your eye exercise program. Well, we've been talking a lot about barriers that we've noticed ourselves with ourselves, with our clients, and also with our surveys. But what we're talking a little bit more about today is identifying your own personal barriers,
right,
and then figuring out ways of overcome it. And obviously, it's an important thing to overcome.
Yeah, because it seems like a simple thing to say, well, I need you to do eye exercises. I'll just do that. And then when you try to do it, it's sort of like playing golf. You discover, if you try to do it, you discover all the problems of just how simple it looks. It isn't so simple.
Yeah,
that you're going to hit all these barriers that you hadn't anticipated.
Yeah, a lot of them are secret barriers, things that you would never even thought of.
Yeah,
that when you start digging deeper, you start figuring out, what's actually going on, what's preventing you. And I mean, it's just a nice practice to do with anything new that you're trying, really, even exercise. But in particular, we're saying here with the eye exercises, because it is not commonly practiced. You really have to do it off your own esteem.
Yeah.
Certainly nobody is telling you to do them.
It's a bit like I've decided to lose weight. It's not that different in some ways. And you kind of, well, it sounds simple, right? But we all know how complex that really is. How psychological and all the body image stuff, there's so many different sort of hidden barriers that I think we all now know for weight loss that they're there. People could enunciate them. But in eye exercises, there's a similar kind of sort of hidden barriers that you will encounter.
Yeah, and I think we're also less likely, because of doubt that we'll talk about in the next episode. In this right now we're going to talk about that. But so with that doubt, once it doesn't take much before you just think, oh, these eye exercises don't work. Right. Oh, I just won't do it.
Right.
So whereas something like losing weight, it's like, well, my doctor says I need to lose weight because of health issues, and like we were saying with the self-image, and there's other stronger motivations there. But with eye exercises, because it's not as publicized, there's no bandwagon to jump on. Yeah. I'm sure if George Clooney or somebody started doing eye exercises, more people would start jumping on board with this thing.
And maybe that's one of the first barriers is like, well, nobody else is doing this. So why? And you start doubting, like, well, I'm the only one doing this. Like, why would it work? Yeah. No one else is doing it.
Yeah. And if you think, your husband or wife or your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, if they're not doing it, and all the time they're like, well, you're wasting your time with those eyes.
Right.
And then,
exactly.
To finish it all off, you go to the ophthalmologist and they're just like, well, your vision's not improved. There's no point in doing the eye exercises. I told you so, after a couple of weeks or a month or something. Then, of course, it's really going to knock you back, and it's a difficult thing to do. But one thing we know is that if you do the exercises, you see improvements.
Right. I think it's the tricky part too. It's like you'll do an exercise and your vision will most of the time you'll see an improvement right away.
Yeah.
And the trick is actually believing that if you keep doing it, your vision will get better over time.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody questions.
Uh-huh.
Actually, they probably question that it would ever even do it at short term now I think about it. But you at least can see that benefit right away. But then the doubt is, can I really do this over time?
And it's like we keep pushing it back. Like the yardstick always keeps going back to the begin with. It's like eye exercises, they don't work.
Yeah.
And then you'll do one and you, I do see a little bit better, but it won't do this. And then you do that, and then it's like, wow, this might have happened, but it's definitely not going to. And it just keeps going.
Yeah.
So you've always got these reasons to not do eye exercises. And
right.
What we're saying really is to try and compile a list. Try and find those barriers. What just list your top 5 reasons why you're not doing the eye exercises.
Right.
And we've certainly got a couple of ourselves.
Yeah. Like, I'm too busy. That's one of them. I guess we don't have doubt because we have researched this pretty thoroughly.
Well, but in the beginning.
Well, in the beginning, you're right.
I guess I'm fortunate. I'm somebody that dives straight in. When I found out about Mir Schneider and how he had overcame his blindness, then I was on that bandwagon.
Right.
I was there. I bought all his books. I was reading all about him. I started doing the exercises. But I guess with me, because my eyes are degenerative, right. I've always got to keep working that much more. So it's even more important for someone like myself to keep doing this on a long-term basis. So it's even more difficult to keep going, to keep removing all those barriers, because there's I've been doing it for 6-7 years now. So there's always new barriers as well that you have to keep removing and going with.
Well, and for me, even going to this ophthalmologist this week, you can see the introduction of doubt, like heredity. Like, well, maybe because it's hereditary, it won't improve. And in my condition too, there are these. Well, it's similar to you. I have these cells that are they dead? Are they dormant? Are they in between? And does anyone really know? Is the question.
Yeah.
A doctor would probably come in and say, these are dead. Make a definitive line between live cells and dead cells, and you will never get these back, kind of thing.
Yeah. And when we've worked with people that have got those cells back, and we, other practitioners that have also got clients that have seen it come back, it's like, well, where is that?
Where's that line? Yeah, maybe it's not. And even like when we work with, because we also work with muscular dystrophy, things like that, and to see someone who is in a wheelchair with muscle cells that are theoretically non-functional, and then to see them work them and get back to using their legs and get out of the wheelchair. Yeah. So why are nerve cells in your eyes any different than that?
And not just that, but to the point of jumping on trampolines and climbing mountains here in San Francisco. It's really, just like you were talking about the glass ceiling effect, I kind of feel like we don't know until we've tried, until we've tried our best. Some people might say, okay, well, I'll try. And then 6 months down the line, they're like, okay, well, I did it for 6 months, but I'm not completely cured, so I'm just going to stop doing it. And the eye exercises are really easy to not do.
They are, yeah.
It's really something that you have to put effort in.
Right.
Which is why I guess we tried so hard to be able to fit it, that take those 10 minutes out of your day and just slot it in there, which again, we'll talk about a little bit later. But, it's easy just to quit.
Yeah.
Eye exercises, and really the people that see the best results are those that do it on a regular basis.
I think I've just come up with a Richardism.
Okay.
We're going to turn doubt on its head.
Okay.
All right. So instead of going, well, eye exercises don't work, it's hereditary, that's the downward doubt spiral. Now we're going to turn it on its head, and we're going to doubt that there are these definitive lines, right? So it's like, well, those cells dead. Well, we're going to doubt whether they're really dead.
Yeah.
And we're going to do the eye exercises to question whether they really are dead. You know what I'm saying?
And to confirm.
It's
see for yourself.
See for yourself. It's like Columbus. It's like when they said, don't go over the edge of the world. If you sail that direction, you're going to fall off the edge of the world. Well, he was doubting that edge of the world. I'm not sure it was Columbus, but one of those guys.
Yeah. Someone on a boat who was Spanish or Portuguese.
Yeah, right. So maybe that's our line. Our edge of the world is, it can't be done. doubt whether those people who tell you that that's the edge of the world are telling you the truth.
You almost say, okay, there's this information here.
Yeah.
There's this, there's these vision improvement guys over here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's me, and I'm gonna see all the options and see what is actually going on here for myself, instead of listening to other people and letting them tell me what I can and can't do with my own vision.
Exactly.
Who else knows other than yourself?
Right.
And again, everyone's different. What might work with one person might not work with another person, but at the same time, it might also work with that person. So, there is no, and this is what's so difficult with this work, there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
You can't just say, let's take X population, do X exercises, and X will be achieved.
Right.
Because that's not how the human body works. That's not how we function.
Yeah.
So on this list then, just list your top 5 barriers that you really think that are stopping you from doing the eye exercises. And there's no real right or wrong answer. It could be something like, I'm feeling tired in the morning, or I didn't have my cup of coffee. It could just be anything that's stopping you. I've got a couple of kids, or, I've got an exercise.
I have a house remodel project.
Yeah. Anyone that wants to know about that can listen to the last 2 months of podcasts, and they know all about Richard's barrier of house
remodeling. Yes.
So, but what we're saying here is that we've got there's always some common ones that come up that we're addressing. And the first one we just talked about is doubt. Do the eye exercises really work?
Right.
And just, will it help my own condition? Am I doing the eye exercises right? All these things that pop up in our head that eventually lead to us not doing the eye exercises. So, but another one is, and that we've certainly talked about before, is time.
Right. And this is just, I'm too busy. It comes down to that. Or I would do it once I finish XXX, then I will be free to do it. The trouble is XXX gets filled in with Y.
So, and I certainly noticed it, like, even the other day, our listeners will know that I've been getting up at 5:30 in the morning, so I get that extra bit of time to do my eye exercises.
I'm getting up at 6 now. I just realized that in order to do the exercises at 7. But
So, but one thing I noticed this week, because I've been working like a busy little beaver, is the eye exercise time started getting shorter and shorter, and my work time started getting longer. So I started feeling, even though I was getting up earlier at 5:30, and by the end of it, I found myself just doing work and being like, I'll do my eye exercises a little bit later.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that comes part of the priorities that we'll talk a little bit about later on. You talk about creating a priority list. But I mean, for myself, if I say I'll do my exercise later, I never do.
Yeah, that's been my experience too.
The day takes over and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So, but one thing that we certainly encourage people is to try and find those time slots. So for me, it's first thing in the morning. For some people, it's lunchtime. For some people, it's just before they start work or when they've just finished work. Everybody's different in their own everyday life, in that time frame of where they can fit in the eye exercises.
I think one thing that does work about the first thing in the morning is sort of a break from your flow of time.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing coming ahead of that. So there might be other times in the day, like lunch. Oh, I eat lunch. You always eat lunch. You're going to starve otherwise. So then you go, oh, that has broken the flow of events. Now I can fit a 10-minute thing after lunch.
Yeah, and this is certainly why we broke the Eye Exercise Express into 10-minute intervals, was because we were finding people could grab those 10 minutes. So even if it's, say, eye rotations whilst you're brushing your teeth. Right. So you would listen to the eye rotations exercise, press play, you do your eye rotation, you brush your teeth, and then you've done your 10-minute eye exercise. And it wasn't a barrier, it wasn't a real effort. You didn't have to go too much of a challenge to actually do it. It was just sort of there. It was part of your day. And just like we say, maybe you're eating lunch, or maybe you've eaten your lunch and you're just now taking a 20-minute break. You're letting your food digest before you go back to the office or whatever. And you've got that time where you're doing those eye exercises. So what we're suggesting here is to map out your week, and then, or just a day, just a single day, and try and find where could a 10-minute time slot.
Right. We've kind of broken down the exercises in the Express into 10 minutes because it's a small enough time frame that people don't treated as a real burden. And most people can take a 10-minute break somewhere.
And certainly, it can be overwhelming to begin with if you're trying one of the free programs on our website. There's quite a few exercises there. And also on the Eye Exercise Express, we've cut down to 4 main eye exercises.
Right.
But certainly even that for a lot of people, when you go from 0 to, 40 minutes can be a lot. So what we're saying is just pick just 10 minutes, just that 10 minutes.
Right. And even if you get up and you do a 10-minute exercise, and then you do a 10-minute exercise at lunch, 10 minutes when you get back from work, something like that, and then 10 minutes before you go to bed, you've got 40 minutes of eye exercises in there. So, and then you've accomplished it without really feeling like, man, I just spent 2 hours going to the gym or some large block of time like that.
But even if you can't do that, even if at this point in time finding those 10 minutes, just choose one 10 minutes, just one exercise that you're going to do that day. Maybe even pre-plan it. Just say, okay, tomorrow's Tuesday. What does my day look like? What does my schedule look like? Okay, I've got 10 minutes there. Where am I? What exercise can I do? I'll just press play, or I'll just do that exercise in that 10-minute slot, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then the next day, do the same thing. And what you'll notice is as you go, you'll start working the exercises into your day. It doesn't become a barrier as much, because it's part of your routine, and you realize it's not that hard to do. And then maybe in a week, 2 weeks, maybe you stick another exercise in.
Yeah, the advantage of that in some ways, say you started with palming, and for a week or two you just did palming for 10 minutes a day, you might start actually to notice the benefits of those 10 minutes, after over time. And then say you add in shifting or whatever another exercise on your program is. Then you start to say, oh, I'm seeing a little clearer. I'm paying attention to details a little more. So as you add them gradually, in some ways, you could start noticing the benefits by keeping them distinct that way. Yeah.
So certainly something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel like, oh, unless I'm going to do an hour a day for the next 5 years, I'm not going to see any improvement. And it's really not like that. Everybody is an individual. Yes, obviously you're going to see more benefits.
Yeah.
If you did an hour a day for that, for a longer periods of time. But this, what we're really trying to do here is to reach out to the general public, really trying to figure out what it is, why people aren't doing the eye exercises, and start giving some solutions.
Right.
And just working a program into your day gradually, if that's something that you need to do, is a lot better way of starting the eye exercises, start seeing the program, start seeing the progress, and then that way it really just takes off from there.
And this is where we took all of our brain power on this topic and put it into the Eye Exercise Express. So that's our best shot in some ways at solving a lot of these problems. So yeah. So, but we will talk a little bit more about some of the other issues next week. But certainly, if you head over to the Envision Self-Healing website, you'll see there the Eye Exercise Express is now available after all these months and weeks of ridiculous hard work. But you'll see all our hard work there. So just head over there, and you'll be able to find out a little bit more about the Eye Exercise Express, and of course how you can get your hands on it. Okay, great. Well, it's a good time to move on to question of the week. And the question of the week this week comes from a Facebook fan. Is that what they're called? Yeah, they are called fans, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
And could you read the question this time?
I will do, yeah.
It's a long one.
So it says, hello, Richard and William. I have a question for you. When I look at an eye chart, my eyesight varies between 2020 and 2070. It changes every time I blink to blurry and slowly becomes clear up until the next blink. And by the way, I don't mean blank. Isn't that a TV show?
Yeah.
Anyway, fill in the blank. This is a pretty big range.
Yeah.
How can I tell if my eyesight has become better without running to the optometrist every 2 weeks? Thanks.
Right.
So certainly a few questions in that one, and
it's a rich question actually for us.
And this is certainly why we were talking about last week about the benefit of having the coaching calls every 2 weeks, as we're able to answer these questions.
We could talk an hour on probably many of the questions in here. So
yeah, there's certainly a benefit, and that's one of the bonuses that we're giving away with the Eye Exercise Express. So, but for in particular for this guy, I guess, again, it depends on his condition. Why is he seeing 20/70 in the first place?
Right.
and why is he coming down to 20/20? Now, my initial thoughts that this is what we've talked about before, which is flashes of clear vision.
Right. I think we could assume that this guy probably has has myopia, and probably his uncorrected vision is 20/70.
Yeah.
We're making some assumptions here.
Yeah.
And that his flashes of clear vision are taking him to 20/20, as you say.
So for me, that's great. Because it proves that that's what the eye is potential. The potential there is still 20/20. And this guy is relatively young. So, unfortunately what happens is when you wear glasses, you sort of start concreting the 20/70 vision.
Right.
And you start moving away more and more from that 20/20 vision. So that's why, we try and encourage people as much as possible to start weaning themselves off their glasses. And then, the eye can exercise more, and then it starts becoming better and better instead of worse and worse.
And then the flashes become longer, and when he blinks, he would be seeing maybe like 20/60 when he blinks as opposed to 20/70, and it would gradually get better over time.
Yeah, so, and by blinking you mean the worse vision at the top
worst
end
vision,
of the scale,
yes,
right?
yeah.
So, but for us, so the flashes of clear vision, this is very common in a lot of people when they start doing the eye exercises, that the flashes of clear vision is your potential. That's what your eyes could be. Now, you can force that under strain.
Right.
Something like central fixation, where you stare, maybe you squint as well. You really sort of try and force that vision in your eye, and it is possible to see that 20/20 for some people.
Right.
Now, for some people, you get a flash of clear vision because your eyes are nice and relaxed.
Right, which is more typical of me,
Which is better. That's kind of, we want that. But it is possible to force that. So the idea is that eventually, when your eyes are relaxed in the natural state, when you're blinking, that's when you start seeing the 20/20, when it's in its more natural state instead of the foreign, strenuous state that
the stressed state. And the other reason we don't encourage becoming attached to that way of seeing clearly is that it's a stare. It's you're actually resisting blinking, which we encourage blinking, and you're fixating your eyes very strongly on one point and not letting them move around. Yeah, both of which are not great for your eyes.
Yeah, it's really cruel, really, that because you see that clear vision, and that's your motivation to keep going in that direction. Wow, I see 20/20. This is amazing, but unfortunately, it's not the natural way of seeing, and it creates more strain. Eventually, headaches, visual fatigue. You'll start losing the 20/20, and it will start getting worse and worse. And then your prescription will start going up.
So we would encourage him to blink more, to move his eyes around more, and not fixate strongly or stare, is what we would call it, at the chart so much.
And certainly this ties in a little bit with our barriers, because what we're saying is not to be so fixated, excuse the pun, on getting that 20/20 all the time.
Right.
To try and be relaxed with your vision. Okay, maybe 20/70 is his vision for now. But if he continues to do the eye exercises, the 20/70 becomes the 20/60, then the 20/50, then the 20/40, and he starts seeing the 20/20 line in a good way instead of in a strenuous way. Right. And this is exactly what we're talking about with the importance of removing those barriers, because you need to do the exercises over a long period of time. There's no quick fix. This isn't natural vision LASIK improvement. There isn't, you can't just do a couple of these exercises. Sure, you can see some short-term improvements, but we're talking about long-term vision improvement, healthy vision up into your 70s, 80s, and 90s, and hopefully our hundreds.
Well, and really, to sustain good vision like that, you have to learn how to look in a relaxed way. So that's why we would encourage that. Well, the last thing I would say, too, is that stop fixating again so much on the chart, and come up with other ways of evaluating your vision, looking around and just noticing the clarity in your surroundings, things like that.
Yeah, and we do go through this in a lot more detail in the Let's Get Going, the first track in the Eye Exercise Express. But basically, not using the chart as your only way of testing your vision.
Right.
Do your eyes feel better? Just looking around you, do things maybe seem clearer? Are colours a little bit brighter?
Yeah.
There's so much more to vision than that 20/20 line. And we also suggest that you're not testing your vision every couple of weeks.
Right.
You need to just sort of play with your eyes, see how the vision is improving yourself. If you see something is clearer, then it's clearer.
Yeah.
You don't need a chart to tell you that.
Yeah. Oh, one last point I have to make is that this sort of points out that vision isn't fixed at one point.
Oh, indeed.
That at one point on the chart, that it really is variable, which is something that optometrists and ophthalmologists would tell you is not true.
Yeah, which is why when you go to them with these questions, they
wouldn't know how to answer. Yeah. So that is something that it's one of the things you need to understand is your vision is variable depending on your stress, how exactly you're using your eyes. So
it's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's good because it shows that poor vision can be good, but also that your good vision can become poor as well. So and not necessarily permanently, it can fluctuate.
Right.
So, but nothing is static here, and this is also...
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. This is also what Western medicine hates.
Yeah, it has to be static.
It must, in order to prod it with
needles and stuff,
and test it, it has to be the static, non-moving thing. So
exactly.
It's really good to bear in mind, because some days you might have clear vision, some days it might not be that clear.
Right.
And that's just it's just natural to have that.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you'd like a little bit more information, then you can head over to our website at envisionselfhealing.com, and you can certainly get your hands on some free eye exercise programs if you want to start giving the eye exercises a go. And you can also find over there a free ebook called A Modern Day Guide for Improving Eyesight, where we go through a little bit more information about the basics of eye exercises and how our modern day lives are actually contributing to poorer vision. But even better, you can find out easy, simple eye exercises that can start improving it and start helping your eyesight. And certainly head over to our Facebook fan page where you can see some pictures of Richard and I and how we're getting on with our own vision improvement. And indeed, this week you'll be able to see my my latest golfing experience with my laser system. It's not mine; it was a golf store. I just hope that the manager's not listening, because then they won't let us in again. And you can also post some questions up there if indeed you have any of them, or check out any of the other questions that we might already have. You could also follow Richard and I on Twitter, where we keep our up tweeting. I don't even know.
Tweeting?
I don't even know. Just everyone seems to be making stuff up, all these new phrases.
Tweeting up.
I just thought I would just join the bandwagon.
Yeah, why not?
So we tweet on our own progress and also some helpful hints on how you can improve your own vision as well. If you're listening to this on iTunes, then you could subscribe, and it means that you'll get our weekly podcast sent directly to you. And indeed, if you're listening to this on YouTube, then click the subscribe button and you'll be notified every time we release one of our podcasts. So good luck with your eye exercises this week. Don't forget to check out the Eye Exercise Express. It's just released right now on our website, so give that a look and find out some of the great stuff that we're doing over there with our brand new product. And happy healing.
Oh, and look for the bonus on the Eye Exercise Express.
Indeed,
phone calls. Yeah, Q&A phone calls.
We look forward to answering a lot more questions in person.
And talking more.
Yeah, and not being so rushed as we have to do with these podcasts.
And have a good week.